Somewhere in the city's endless maze of souks and marble courtyards, music drifted, the kind that made strangers lean in closer without knowing why. On the balcony of the Mirador Hotel, Amira leaned over the railing, her silk scarf trembling in the warm wind. Below, the city glowed, 1,000 lanterns swaying over market stalls, steam curling from rooftops, the perfume of saffron and salt water thick in the air. And yet, she wasn't looking at the view. She was looking at the drop. She gripped the railing, knuckles pale. Just one step forward and... "Careful," a voice said, low and certain. She turned sharply. A man stood in the shadows of the balcony's far corner, a cigarette glowing faintly between his fingers. His suit was rumpled, his tie loose, but there was nothing careless about him. The way his eyes fixed on hers, dark, steady, made her feel as though he had been watching her for far longer than this moment. "I'm fine," she lied. "People who are fine," he said, taking a slow step closer, "don't stand on balconies like this in a city they don't belong to." "How do you know I don't belong?" she asked, tilting her chin. He gave the faintest smile. "Because I do. And I've never seen you before." The music from the street below swelled, drowning the pause between them. Somewhere far away, fireworks bloomed red and gold over the harbor, reflecting in his eyes. She should have walked away. She should have gone back inside. Instead, she asked, "And if I told you I'm here for one night only?" His smile deepened, not playful, but like he already knew the ending of a story she hadn't started telling. "Then I'd say," he murmured, leaning against the railing beside her, "we should make it count." Her heart stuttered. She didn't know this man. She didn't even know his name. But in that instant, with the wind tangling her scarf and the city roaring below, she felt as though she had stepped onto the edge of something far more dangerous than the balcony. Somewhere down the street, sirens wailed. The man's expression shifted, a flicker of alarm before he masked it with a slow drag of his cigarette. "Come with me," he said quietly, dropping the cigarette and crushing it under his heel. "Why?" she asked. "Because in this city," he said, taking her hand before she could protest, "you don't want to be found." The night had cooled, but the city had not. From the rooftop terrace of the Hotel Andrada, the air shimmered with perfume and jazz, with champagne glasses catching the light of 1,000 lanterns strung like constellations overhead. Elena was there only because her friend Lucia had insisted. "You need air," Lucia had said earlier, tugging her from the small apartment. "And perhaps, a little trouble." Now, leaning against the balustrade, Elena let the soft strains of a violin carry her thoughts away until she felt it. That same gaze. She turned, and there he was. Rafael Cortez, as if the crowd parted for him alone. He wore no tuxedo, only a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled, a dark vest that fit like it had been stitched just for him. And that same expression, equal parts curiosity and mischief. "You again," she said before she could stop herself. "You sound surprised," he replied, the hint of an accent turning the words into something warmer. "I thought men like you disappear after a single night," she teased. "Men like me?" He stepped closer, the city lights painting shadows across his cheekbones. "The dangerous kind." Instead of denying it, he smiled. "If I'm dangerous, then you're not very good at keeping safe." She should have walked away. Instead, she let him take her hand. His palm was warm, his touch deliberate. Without asking, he drew her toward the center of the terrace where a slow waltz had begun. "I don't dance with strangers," she whispered, though she was already moving in rhythm with him. "Then don't think of me as a stranger," he murmured back. The music swelled, and for a moment, the world narrowed to the slide of his hand at her waist, the scent of something faintly like sandalwood, and the dangerous truth that she didn't want the song to end. When it did, they stood closer than they should, their breathing uneven. "Careful, Elena," he said, his voice low. "Some meetings are accidents, others are fate." And then, before she could answer, he pressed something small into her palm and walked away. She looked down. A room key. Suite 704. The lanterns above swayed gently, but in her chest, her heart raced. Elena stood frozen on the terrace, the small brass key warming in her palm as if it carried his pulse. Suite 704. She could return it. She could pretend she never saw it. She could tell herself this was reckless, foolish, dangerous. But instead, she slipped it into her purse. The party blurred after that, laughing faces, the clinking of glasses, Lucia's voice somewhere in the distance. Elena's mind was elsewhere, tracing the number 704 over and over until curiosity became an ache. By the time she stepped into the elevator, her breath was shallow. The mirrored walls reflected her flushed cheeks, her eyes too bright. The numbers climbed 5, 6, 7, and with each floor, her pulse thudded harder. When the doors slid open, the hallway was silent, lit by pools of golden light from ornate sconces. Her heels tapped softly against the carpet as she stopped in front of the door. Suite 704. She hesitated. And then, footsteps. From the far end of the hall, Rafael appeared, his jacket now draped over one shoulder, his hair slightly tousled as if he'd just left some trouble behind. "You came," he said softly, not as a question but as a fact. "I haven't decided why yet," she replied. He stepped closer, unlocking the door without breaking eye contact. "Then decide inside." The suite was bathed in amber light from a single lamp. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city below, glittering like a sea of fireflies. On the table by the window sat 2 crystal glasses and a half-full bottle of red wine, as if he'd known she'd arrive. "I don't usually," she began, but he cut in gently. "Neither do I." "But sometimes," he poured the wine, handed her a glass. "Sometimes life only gives you one night." They sat by the window, knees almost touching, the city buzzing beneath them. He asked her nothing ordinary, no talk of work or family. Instead, he asked about the most beautiful place she'd ever seen, the dream she'd never told anyone, the moment she'd felt most alive. She told him. And he listened. Really listened. At some point, his hand found hers on the table, his thumb brushing her skin in slow, deliberate circles. Her heart felt like it might break, not from fear, but from wanting more than she'd meant to. Then, just as she thought he might kiss her, there was a knock on the door. Rafael's expression shifted, just for a second, from warmth to something sharper. "Don't move," he whispered. The knock came again, louder this time. The sound was sharp, almost impatient. Elena's fingers tightened around the stem of her wineglass. Rafael crossed the suite with the slow precision of someone measuring every step. He didn't ask who is it. He simply opened the door just enough to see, his body blocking the gap. "Elena," a woman's voice purred from the hallway, "you didn't tell me you'd be here." Elena froze. She knew that voice, smooth, dangerous, dripping with the kind of confidence that made people step aside without knowing why. It belonged to Isabella Mendez, the city's most notorious art dealer, a woman whispered about in the same tone as rare stolen paintings. "Isabella," Rafael said evenly, "this isn't a good time." "Oh, I think it's the perfect time." Isabella's gaze darted past him, landing on Elena with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I see you've met my charming thief." "Thief?" Elena's pulse spiked. Her eyes shot to Rafael, who didn't flinch, didn't deny it. Instead, he gave Isabella a look that was half warning, half weary amusement. "Not here," he said under his breath. But Isabella only stepped closer to the doorway, her perfume wrapping into the room like smoke. "You didn't tell her about the necklace, did you?" Elena blinked. "What necklace?" Neither of them answered right away. The silence was thick enough to crush her breath. Rafael finally turned back to Elena, his voice low. "I was going to tell you, but not tonight." "Oh, darling," Isabella purred, "tonight is exactly the night." The door clicked shut, locking Isabella and her venomous smile on the other side. But her words lingered, clinging to the air like the scent of her perfume. Elena set her glass down, heart pounding. "You're going to tell me what that was about?" Rafael didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the balcony, pushing open the glass doors. The night air rushed in warm, with the faint hum of the city below. He stood there for a moment, his back to her, the city lights painting the outline of his shoulders in gold. When he turned, his expression was unreadable. "The necklace Isabella spoke of, it's more than just jewelry. It's a piece of history worth millions." people have killed for less. And you? Elena asked softly. Did you take it? Rafael's lips curved, not quite a smile. I stole it, to keep it out of worse hands. Her chest tightened. And what makes you better than them? He stepped forward, slow but sure, until he was close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from him. Nothing, he murmured. Except that I've never lied to you about what I am. Something in his eyes made her stomach twist, not fear, but the pull of something dangerous and magnetic. He held out his hand. Come with me tonight. Let me show you my world. Just once. Every instinct screamed that it was a terrible idea. But her fingers still slid into his. Minutes later, they were weaving through the cobblestone backstreets of the city, the velvet night wrapping around them. Somewhere in the distance, music spilled from an open courtyard, a low, sultry tango. Rafael paused, then pulled her gently toward the sound. In the dim light of an old street lamp, he placed a hand at her waist. Dance with me. I don't know how, she whispered. Good, he said, his voice a low rumble. Then you'll have to follow my lead. They moved together, her hand pressed against his chest, his breath brushing her temple. The world narrowed to the sound of the music, the scrape of his shoe on stone, and the way his gaze never left hers. By the time the last note faded, she wasn't sure if her trembling came from the dance, or from him. The night should have ended with the dance. A perfect moment, sealed under the moonlit streets of the city. But fate had a cruel sense of timing. As Rafael and Elena left the courtyard, a black car slid into the narrow street ahead, its headlights cutting like blades through the dark. Two men stepped out, tall, sharp suits, ice cold enough to freeze the air. One of them carried something in his hand that gleamed under the lamplight. Rafael de Luca, the taller one said, voice like gravel. You have something that belongs to us. Elena's grip tightened around Rafael's hand. She could feel his pulse, fast, but steady. You'll have to be more specific, Rafael replied, his tone a smooth, dangerous drawl. The man's lips twitched. The necklace. Hand it over, and maybe the lady walks away. Elena's stomach turned. The lady. She was nothing more than leverage to them. Before she could speak, Rafael stepped slightly in front of her. You'll have to kill me first. The man smiled as if that was exactly the plan. In one fluid motion, Rafael pushed Elena toward the shadow of an alley. Run. Don't stop. But she didn't. Instead, she grabbed his arm. I'm not leaving you. For a heartbeat, his eyes softened. Then stay close. The fight erupted fast, too fast. Fists, grunts, the crash of a trash bin against the cobblestones. Rafael moved like a predator, every strike precise, every dodge measured. But there were two of them, and one landed a blow that sent him staggering. Elena's gaze darted to the glint of the necklace chain peeking from Rafael's jacket pocket. And then to the gun in the taller man's hand. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. She lunged, grabbing the man's wrist. He snarled, twisting free, but it was enough for Rafael to slam him against the wall, sending the gun clattering to the ground. They didn't wait for round two. Rafael seized her hand, and they ran, turning corner after corner until the sound of pursuit faded into the hum of the city. When they finally stopped, both breathless, they were somewhere high above the city on a rooftop. The moon hung low, the streets far below glowing like rivers of gold. You could have died back there, Rafael said, his voice rough. So could you, Elena replied, her tone just as sharp. And you didn't tell me they'd be shooting at us. He let out a soft laugh, shaking his head. Then his gaze locked on hers, intense, unreadable. You're either the bravest or the most foolish woman I've ever met. Her lips curved slightly. Maybe I'm both. The rooftop was quiet except for the whisper of the wind and the faint hum of the city below. Rafael paced once, twice, then stopped at the edge, staring out over the glowing skyline. Elena crossed her arms. You've been dodging my questions since the moment we met. Now you're going to answer them. He didn't look at her. The less you know, the safer you are. She stepped closer. You almost got shot tonight. You think ignorance is safety? You think I can just walk away after everything? His jaw tightened. For a long moment, the only sound was the soft creak of the rooftop boards beneath their feet. Finally, he turned, and for the first time, she saw it, a shadow of pain in his eyes. The necklace, he began, pulling it from his jacket. The moonlight caught on its strange, intricate pattern, a delicate gold chain holding a pendant shaped like an ancient crest. It belonged to my mother. Or at least, that's the story I was told. He hesitated, as if choosing his next words with care. It's not just jewelry, Elena. It's a key one of 3 that unlocks something very old, and very dangerous. Her breath caught. Dangerous how? Rafael's gaze darkened. Dangerous enough that men will kill for it. Dangerous enough that I've been hunted for years because of it. Elena took a step forward, her eyes searching his. And you've been running ever since? He gave a faint, humorless smile. Running, stealing, lying, doing whatever I had to keep it away from them. Something inside her twisted, not just sympathy, but recognition. He's been alone all this time. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. Rafael, she said softly, you don't have to do this alone anymore. For a heartbeat, they just stood there, the city lights flickering below them. Then, slowly, he closed the space between them. His hand came up, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. You have no idea what you're promising, he murmured. Then show me, she whispered. And then he kissed her, slow at first, then deeper, with the heat of everything unsaid between them. The kind of kiss that rewrote the rules. The kind of kiss that promised danger and devotion in the same breath. When they finally broke apart, she was breathless. What now? She asked. He glanced toward the far-off silhouette of the mountains. Now, we find the second key. The city lights faded into the distance as Rafael's motorcycle roared along the coastal highway. Elena clung to him, the warm night air whipping through her hair, the scent of salt and danger mingling with every breath. They were heading north, toward the mountains where the second key was rumored to be hidden, somewhere inside the ruins of an abandoned monastery. But they weren't alone. In the side mirror, Elena caught the glint of headlights trailing them, too steady, too deliberate. Rafael, she warned. I see them. His voice was low, clipped. Hold on. The bike surged forward, weaving between late-night trucks and cars. The ocean flashed silver beside them, waves crashing under the moonlight. The pursuing car matched their speed. Then, gunfire. A bullet sparked off the guardrail, the sound sharp against the roar of the wind. Elena ducked instinctively, her heart pounding. Rafael swerved hard, taking an unexpected exit into a narrow road flanked by cliffs. The pursuers followed. At the last second, he braked, the bike sliding sideways in a controlled skid. The car swerved to avoid hitting them and slammed into the cliffside, the impact sending a shockwave through the ground. The silence afterward was deafening. They didn't wait. Minutes later, they were back on the main road, the hum of the engine steady again. Rafael's grip on the handlebars was tight. They won't stop, Elena said, her voice trembling. No, he agreed, glancing back at her, but neither will we. In the distance, the black shape of the mountains grew larger, the monastery hidden somewhere within. What neither of them saw high above on the cliffside was the silhouette of a woman watching them through binoculars. Her lips curled into a knowing smile. Hello, Rafael, she whispered to herself. It's been a long time. The monastery loomed against the night sky, its spires broken, its stone walls shrouded in ivy like the fingers of time clawing at its remains. The moonlight painted the ruins silver, and the air smelled of moss and old secrets. Rafael parked the bike just outside the crumbling archway. Stay close, he told Elena. His voice was steady, but she caught the way his eyes scanned every shadow. They stepped into the courtyard, boots crunching over centuries-old stones. Wind howled softly through empty windows, carrying the faint sound of dripping water. Somewhere in the distance, a bell swung lazily, creaking with each gust. That's when she appeared. A woman stepped from the shadows, her dress the color of spilt wine, clinging like liquid silk. Her hair, black as raven's wings, spilled over one shoulder. She held herself with the ease of someone who knew exactly how much danger she was. "Rafael," she said, her voice a velvet caress laced with amusement. "Still running from ghosts?" Elena froze. There was history here, undeniable, electric. Rafael's jaw tightened. "Isabella." His tone was a warning. The woman's eyes flicked to Elena. "And this must be your new shadow." Elena's pulse quickened. She couldn't tell if the sting she felt was from the insult or from the fact that Rafael hadn't denied it. "What do you want?" Rafael asked, stepping subtly in front of Elena. "Want?" Isabella's smile was dangerous. "I already have what I want." She lifted her hand, revealing a small leather pouch. It jingled with the unmistakable sound of metal, the second key. Rafael moved toward her, but she stepped back, the click of her heels echoing. "You can have it," she said sweetly, "but you'll have to earn it. And you know what I like to wager, Rafael." The way she said it made Elena's skin prickle. There was more than a key at stake here, there was something Rafael wasn't telling her. Isabella's gaze locked on Elena, a slow, assessing smile on her lips. "Let's see if your little companion is as brave as she looks." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain. Somewhere far off, thunder rumbled. Rain began to fall, soft at first, like the sky was hesitating, before turning into a hard, silver curtain. Lightning flashed, illuminating the hollow walls of the monastery. Isabella stood at the center of the courtyard, the pouch with the second key dangling from her fingers like bait. "Your move, Rafael," she purred. Rafael's voice was low, almost swallowed by the rain. "I'm not playing your games anymore." Isabella tilted her head, her lips curving into a mocking smile. "Then you lose everything." Her gaze flicked toward Elena, sharp as a blade. "She's the reason you've grown weak. Once, you would have killed for this key. Now, you hesitate." Rafael's eyes darkened. "I'm not weak." Elena, heart pounding, stepped forward before she could second-guess herself. "If you want me to prove I'm brave, fine. But we both know this isn't about courage, it's about you wanting to see if you can break him again." Isabella's smile faltered. "Give me the key," Elena said firmly. "Or you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you just let your last chance slip away." For a heartbeat, the only sound was the rain hammering the stones. Then Isabella laughed, a low, rich sound, and tossed the pouch into the air. It spun in slow motion before landing in Rafael's hands. "You've changed," Isabella murmured, her gaze lingering on him. "That will be your strength or your ruin." Without another word, she turned and vanished into the shadows. Rafael stood there, rain streaming down his face, his chest rising and falling. He looked at Elena, and in that moment, every wall between them crumbled. "You shouldn't have risked that," he said quietly. "I didn't risk anything," Elena replied, stepping closer. "I just chose you." The key clinked softly as he pocketed it, his hand finding hers. Thunder roared above them, but they didn't flinch. Instead, beneath the shattered roof and the wild night sky, Rafael kissed her slow, deep, and certain. It wasn't desperation anymore. It was a promise. By morning, the rain had washed the monastery clean. They rode out together, the city's skyline rising ahead like a dream reborn. The road was uncertain, but for the first time, neither of them cared. Because sometimes, the treasure isn't gold or keys or power. Sometimes, it's the hand you choose to hold when the storm finally breaks.